If you're coming from FIFA, the first thing you'll notice is how perfectly weighted the passes feel in this game. Cross-court passes are just a joy to pull off, and the player animations and trajectories of the ball are satisfyingly proportional to the force you've applied, as is the difficulty in controlling the ball upon receiving it. Speaking of which, the biggest new change in PES 2019's passing is the very elegant first touch that you dictate upon receiving the ball. Like how Benzema fools the defender going after him and goes outward to have more room, or Firmino's slick touch to make room for a shot. I mean, look at how Bale destroys his mark with a simple first touch in the right direction.
Real chance to break. Shapes to shoot.
Or how Salah combines a touch and a skip to leave his mark in the dust.
Left his man. Mohamed shoots.
This is PES 2019, and this is my review from a realism standpoint. The incredible passing physics are complemented by a wealth of animations for all sorts of situations, including scooping passes, backheel passing on the run while changing directions, and even interceptions while running in the opposite direction of a nearby ball. The revamped first touch and clever player runs come together and result in very smooth-looking build-up plays and satisfyingly rewarding goals. And speaking of smooth, you will need to make use of skills to get around your tight marks in this game, which can be essential to bring your star players into a more threatening position. And while the AI will stick to performing subtle body feints to send you in the wrong direction, you can always destroy defenders using one of the more outrageous skills.
Modric spreads it towards the left. Can he find a finish?
Regardless of Benzema forgetting how to shoot. Playing with teams with pacey forwards like Liverpool or Madrid, you're better off committing to the same way they play in real life, which is mostly through lethal counters with a few touches and perfectly weighted passes that brings their fast forwards face to face with the goalie, where a left-footed Asensio coming in from the left would use the outside of his foot to beautifully curl the ball into the far net. This really is a game where you savor the act of patiently stringing passes together on your way to the goal, and this time Asensio doesn't get too comfortable on the ball before firing it in. I also like the fact the superstar AI will realistically misjudge the power of its passes or its own players' runs. Pressuring the AI will realistically reward you with mistakes that you can capitalize on. Ultimately, the most important part of playmaking in PES 2019 is looking out for the other player movements and putting them in optimal shooting positions. And if you haven't noticed yet in this video, shooting in this game looks right and feels downright therapeutic. And it's made even better with the net physics that are at a completely different level compared to FIFA, with even the faintest of touches producing a faint wiggle of the net. But while net physics are purely cosmetic, player and ball physics are what bring everything together on the pitch. I mean, look at how the spinning ball off Van Dijk's foot bounces back into the pitch and stays in play for Sané to pick up. Or the way Carvajal misjudged the backspin on this one. Similarly, player movements are photorealistically accurate. I mean, look at Isco's low center of gravity and his tiny steps making it easier to pull off changes in direction, while Salah can get away with a combination of well-timed pauses and sprints to cut through a defense. Players also tumble realistically, and they will fall a lot in PES 2019. Unlike last year, it seems that Konami went a bit overboard with the aggressiveness, as AI defenders are routinely seen lunging into attackers and missing the ball completely, which when combined with a fantastic first touch demonstrated by Cruz here, leads to a plethora of gruesome fouls. And as a side note, it doesn't seem that injuries are proportional to the force of the fouls. To make matters more frustrating, referees won't award advantage play when you actually need it, while other times meaninglessly giving short advantages that won't get reversed when the ball is immediately lost. That said, the referee this year is way better at giving fouls with disruptive contact that doesn't include a tackle being made. They do sometimes get it wrong and give it to the wrong side, as in this case where he surprisingly gives a free kick against Milner. Also, I've been playing a whole month and I am yet to be given a single penalty. a problem Konami seems incapable of solving over the past several years. Unlike last year's game, the AI no longer exclusively resorts to through lobs to get to your goal, with several teams actually using the sides more often, and maybe even going to the sides too often in situations where they should move towards the center. Overall, the AI feels more human, and you do see their players lunging at crosses that are going wide while doing an excellent job clearing their crosses realistically. Although they're sometimes a tad too silly and clear balls already rolling out. I was also very happy to see defenders not only failing to catch up with faster players, but also realistically being beat by a faster player even when they've started their sprint closer to the ball. Another thing Konami went overboard with in correcting from last year was the headers, which used to be a whole lot easier. This year it's almost impossible to get a decent header on target without pre-positioning your player using super cancel, a problem the AI doesn't seem to suffer from.
Hit into them massively!
And when you do get the ball on target, you have the vastly improved goalkeepers to deal with, which thankfully works both ways.
Aimed in towards the massive lead!
While keepers this year have drastically improved reflexes, agility, and positioning, I must say the biggest improvement is how reliable they are in closing down on attackers in one-on-one situations, and properly spreading out their bodies, even using their feet when coming out when they won't make it in time otherwise.
Shaqiri.
It's also worth noting that Konami has added a goalkeeper animation to save balls curled into the goal from the side, instead of palming into the goal as in last year's game. Also, a welcome byproduct of the more challenging headers is being forced to cut back outwards instead of crossing, in search of the back of the net. This game looks absolutely stunning at any time of the day, thanks to the new grass textures, which are a huge departure from last year's flat carpet, as well as the new lighting, which creates a much more realistic contrast between the areas in the shadow or under direct sunlight. And at night, the realistic lighting complements the beautiful game unfolding on the pitch. Overall, as a veteran PES player, this year's game is probably the biggest update the series has seen in the past several years, both visually and in gameplay. And the on-pitch action and build-up play is at a completely different level compared to the competition. So that's all for now, and if you liked the camera angles being used here, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on how to import these real-life camera angles into the game. And see you in the next one.